welcome to another episode of Showreel. Today we'll be giving you the lowdown on the latest film and TV news, reviewing some of the latest trailers, and once again we have a very special acting lesson from Keanu Reeves. Sitting alongside me is my co-host Courtney Becht.
Thanks Nick, but first we're joined by our special guest, J Cowderoy. Jemima is an academic studying fan community, and she's also one of the 3 judges for the Madman Anime Cosplay Competition at Supernova. She's here to talk to us about judging at the hugely popular convention and to discuss anime's seemingly popular growth in the Western world. Thank you so much for joining us, Jemima.
It's great to be here.
So could you just give us a brief overview of anime?
Yeah, sure. So anime is one of the more sort of popular styles of television in Japan, and where we tend to only use cartoon to tell children's stories. In Japan, they're going to use animation and cartoon to tell a whole range of different stories. So that's all the way from things you might know like Pokemon up to sort of much darker themes and more complex storylines. So themes, especially themes that are very big in Japanese culture. So obviously war and peace and the avoidance of nuclear conflict, especially, has always, since World War II, been a big part of Japanese storytelling, and you do get that theme coming through a lot in anime.
Oh, great. So I know there's a few different styles with anime, how they convey these themes, so you'll have like exaggerated hairstyles, etc. Can you give us an example of some of these themes?
Sure.
Or
so
representations, I should
yeah,
say.
absolutely. So on one end, we have a studio like Studio Ghibli, who you might know from films like Spirited Away, won the Foreign Film Oscar a couple of years back, and that sort of animation is very detailed, quite lifelike, and so you get films that are very close to the sort of style of realistic painting, I guess. On the other end, you have something like Yu-Gi-Oh, say, a lot of Australians would know, or Dragon Ball, that is sort of crazy hair this high and sort of quite harsh lines and not a lot of realistic detail, but it sort of conveys a particular feeling or a particular mood through that style of drawing, yeah.
So obviously Japan has a huge audience for anime. Yeah. Do you think it's growing here in Australia?
I think it is, definitely. Anime's been growing a great deal in the Western world for a couple of decades. You have sort of properties that were very big in the States in the 80s, like Gundam Wing, and then sort of through the 90s, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and these sort of landmark anime productions that did draw a really sort of surprisingly big at the time audience in the US, and then following that in Europe and in Australia. Yeah. And as those sorts of phenomena have been recognised by media providers here, they've sort of started bringing more and more over. So, for example, Madman Entertainment has for a very long time been sort of the only, or just about the only provider of anime to Australian audiences. And just in the last year or so, we've had, I think, 5 other sort of production companies jump into the game, and big sort of presences like Sony start taking on that sort of idea of distributing anime in Australia. So there's definitely a growing audience.
Yeah, so do you think it'll ever be as popular here as it is in Japan?
It's hard to know. In Japan there's a lot of TV time for anime, but at the same time we do often have several channels here now, especially on cable, showing anime. There is still a mindset here, I think, among a lot of the adult population that cartoons are something for kids, and that's something that would need to change for anime to attain a similar level of popularity here.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, you're very involved in the cosplay community. Yeah. Anime just makes a small part of the cosplay. How big is it in the cosplay culture, though?
Well, I suppose cosplay as a word comes from anime costumes, rather, but we tend to use it because our sort of anime cosplay community is almost synonymous with our sort of community for Star Trek cosplay and Lord of the Rings costuming. We tend to use it to cover all of those. So you're right, anime cosplay is sort of only one part of what we do in cosplay here in Australia, but a lot of the spirit of the community and sort of the way it's organised, and also just the people who run it and sort of put their, Madman Entertainment, I mentioned again, is sort of a big supporter of the cosplay community, so that does keep anime somewhat at the centre of what goes on, I guess.
Oh, okay, cool.
And when did you first realise that you were interested in cosplay and
okay,
anime?
So in 2006, possibly, I think at the end of 2006, just changed uni courses, an old school friend was having coffee with, and she says, okay, so I'm doing this cosplay group for this convention next year. Really need more people to join. You should put something together from your wardrobe and come along. I sort of went, oh God, what's all this? But sort of, I had a look, and because I have no self-preservation whatsoever, instead of getting some things from my closet, I went and hand sewed a costume for the first time, and I had never sewed a stitch in my entire life. My mother has never sewed a stitch, my grandmother has never sewed a stitch, there was no sewing background. So I made this appalling costume. It was great fun. And I went along to this convention and everyone was really nice.
Yeah.
And it was just incredibly good fun. People were really inclusive and they wanted to take pictures of me and everyone was really friendly. And there was sort of a great sense of performance and creativity. And I was just hooked from that point on. Yeah.
Oh, great. In America, I've been hearing lately there's been some issues with Game of Thrones cosplay.
Yes, okay. So Game of Thrones cosplay has obviously been very much on the rise along with the TV series. The books have been popular for a while, but everyone would probably have heard of the TV now. And you'll probably actually be seeing some Game of Thrones cosplay in Brisbane later in the year, because we do have the author of Game of Thrones and some of the stars from the TV series coming for Supernova, so there'll be a lot of Game of Thrones cos. But yeah, one of the sort of weapons, I guess, that's used in Game of Thrones is dragon glass daggers, I think, and which are sort of supposed to be made of obsidian. Now, obsidian daggers are a real thing. I think they're sort of a traditional weapon or an indigenous weapon in Mexico and South America. And I believe they're pretty much the sharpest thing that exists. Sort of if you bash a block of obsidian, you get these sort of shards of incredibly sharp. And people in the States have imported these actual obsidian daggers from Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And taken them to conventions to use as dragon glass daggers. Not thinking
Scary.
about the fact that these are seriously lethal weapons that they're not actually legally allowed to carry around without a permit. Yeah,
definitely.
And sort of damage happens left, right and centre. So that's always something we have to think about at conventions, is making sure that people aren't bringing in things that could be hurting other convention goers. Yeah.
And how long have you been judging?
I've been judging for, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years. So that's been a really great process for me in terms of, I started off, my first competition that I judged was a small convention in Sydney, just the normal comp there, which is now a massive convention in Sydney, but at the time it was in Arumata University. And that was a real learning curve for me, sort of looking at costumes in a different way to building them myself.
Yeah.
And then last year I was invited to judge the national comp, and so I've been doing that for 2 years now. Yeah.
Oh wow, how exciting. Okay guys, we'll be back right after the break. Welcome back to Showreel. Last week you saw us review an unreleased film in 1 minute, but this week Nick and I will review 2 films each and only have 30 seconds per review. I'm first.
And your time starts now.
From the director of Bridesmaids, Paul Feig brings us this action-packed comedy starring the unlikely partners in crime Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. The Heat trailer follows the arrogant FBI agent Sandra Bullock and loudmouth, foul-tempered agent Melissa McCarthy, yelling profanities and using unusual means to catch hard criminals. This looks hysterical and is unlike the common malcast featured in similar plots. The trailer starts out with Bullock as a serious professional FBI agent working alone, and McCarthy as a sloppy and having a not-so-professional... Okay,
sorry.
Your turn.
Too slow.
Okay.
But it's my turn. I'm going to win. Okay.
Okay, ready?
Tell me when to go.
And go.
Hugh Jackman returns to the big screen as the introverted Logan in The Wolverine in what looks to be the darkest superhero movie of the year. Based on the legendary graphic novel by Frank Miller and Chris Claremont, Logan travels to present-day Japan, where an offer of mortality introduces him to new vulnerabilities and new enemies. Given the lightheartedness of recent Marvel installments such as Iron Man 3, The Wolverine appears to be going against the grain with a refreshingly gritty storyline. Directed by James Mangold and starring Will Yun Lee and Brian T alongside Australia's Hugh Jackman, The Wolverine will be hitting Australian screens late July.
Okay, stop.
Just
you
on
made it.
time.
Okay, my next one. Okay.
Ready,
Yeah.
set, go.
Now another funny one, directed by Edgar Wright. The sci-fi comedy The World's End follows 5 friends who are reunited 20 years after attempting an epic pub crawl at the world's end, the friends are dragged by a 40-year-old pal back to their hometown to try and relive the past and attempt to top their teen drinking marathon. But they soon find their adventure involves more than just a rehash of their past and unsuspectingly end up being the only hope for humanity. I can't wait to see this one. It looks
5
hilarious.
seconds.
The humorous British flick stars Rosamund Pike, Martin Freeman, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, David Bradley.
And
okay, I'm too slow. Damn.
Last one.
Okay.
Tell me when to go.
Go.
From the team that brought us Pirates of the Caribbean comes The Lone Ranger, starring Armie Hammer as John Reed and Johnny Depp as Tonto, a Native American warrior. Set in America's old Wild West, Reed, aka the Lone Ranger, and Tonto must form an unlikely partnership to fight against greed, oppression, and tyranny. Judging by the film's first official trailer, there will be action and laughter aplenty, with Johnny Depp putting in a typically eccentric performance. While not a household name here in Australia, the Lone Ranger has remained an enduring icon of American culture since its inception in 1933, and is expected... Oh well, pretty even. We'll see how we go next week.
Think anime and most people jump straight to Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, but there's actually a lot more to it than this. Japanese anime seems to be growing in popularity these days, especially in non-Japanese cultures. But for many people, it is still a strange and curious subculture of which they know very little. We thought we'd take a look into the world of anime fandom and some of the issues around translating anime for a Western audience.
Now, certainly there's a lot of different types of fans that are coming to these cosplay conventions. Can you just give us a brief outline of who's coming, what sort of shows are being emulated, etc.?
Really wide range. So in terms of what kinds of fans, we get the most adorable, sort of, this high, barely able to walk, tiny little kids, who tend to be sort of very into the Digimon and Skylander and that sort of thing. Right through to, the oldest person I've ever judged in a competition was, I think, a 65-year-old man, but you get right up to you get people in their 80s still going strong and doing some of the older characters. So really wide age range, men and women, probably more women, but both definitely. And the full range of shows as well. So, there's still a lot of Pokemon cosplay, a lot of Dragon Ball Z cosplay. I was in Sydney for judging the New South Wales round of the National Champs on the weekend. And the winner of that round was actually a Dragon Ball Z cosplay, which hasn't happened in a while. So all the way from those sorts of more child audience right up to very serious sort of series.
Now, whenever I'm looking at cosplay, I look at some of the costumes and I look at the characters which are being depicted. Is it really hard to embody some of these characters, especially when there's exaggerated styles in anime? Is it quite hard to get the costumes right?
Yeah, proportion is always an issue because, as you say, anime characters tend to be about 8 feet tall and about this wide, which is not a size we generally come in as human beings. No. There are things you can do. So hallmarks of anime, the big eyes. Yeah. We do things like we use coloured contact lenses, which do make your eyes look bigger, and a lot of us have sort of makeup qualifications or some makeup skills, and there are ways of making your eyes look bigger. There are ways of contouring your face with makeup to make your bone structure look different. Platform heels, big thing, and you learn to. It's very difficult, I think, for beginning cosplayers to get some of those proportions, but you can sort of learn to make clothes in a different way, and lots of really strange materials.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what does otaku mean in the world of anime fandom?
Okay, so otaku is it's a Japanese word. In Japan, it has some negative, some derogatory sort of implications. It tends to refer to someone who's to a young man who perhaps doesn't have a lot of friends and sort of spends most of his time in his room watching anime. It was used in the States, but then also in other Western countries for a while to sort of refer to nerds or fans more of Japanese pop culture rather than of, say, Star Trek or something.
Okay, yeah.
And it does still get used in that context. It's probably being used a little less now because people are more aware of the sort of potential sort of implications. But you will still hear it around a lot. Yeah,
definitely. How about translating anime from Japanese culture over to Western culture? There's a lot of issues with dubbing, etc. What's your take on?
Well, okay. A lot of sort of real people who watch a lot of anime will tend to watch subtitles rather than dubs. for different reasons. You know, we like the Japanese actors, or the translations can sometimes be a little closer to the original. At the same time, a lot of the dubs that are done now are fantastic. Certainly when I was first watching, not very first, but a lot of the first anime I watched was on Cartoon Network, or sort of those American channels that do screen dubbed programs, and I loved them.
Yeah, yeah, so do I.
And we do get the sort of American voice actors who do the anime dubs come to our conventions as well, and they always have plenty of people queuing up to see them. So there's obviously an audience there for sort of the subtitles and the dubbed versions, and they seem to coexist okay.
Yeah, because like Pokemon, when I was little, I used to absolutely love that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've always wondered, how do they actually dub it? I know you explained to me before.
Okay, so when you're making an animation normally in Japan or in the States, if you're making a Disney movie, the voice actor is going to record the vocals, and then the animators are going to animate the mouth and so on to fit those vocals. Obviously, when you're dubbing over something, they're not going to reanimate that whole show. So the voice actor has a bit of a tricky task in that they're going to have the animation in front of them, and they have to speak to that. So when you're speaking English, which sounds quite different to Japanese and has sort of different lengths of words, it can be quite tricky for them to sort of fit those two together. But they do a reasonably good job of it most of the time.
Looks great.
That's great. Well, we'll have to leave it there, but clearly there's a lot more to anime than meets the eye. Stay tuned for more Showreel after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Showreel. After acquiring the rights to E.L. James' 50 Shades of Grey trilogy back in March 2012, Universal Pictures and Focus Features recently announced that Sam Taylor-Johnson has been signed on to direct the film adaptation of the first book in this best-selling series. Taylor-Johnson, director of the BAFTA-nominated film Nowhere Boy, about John Lennon's childhood, was an unexpected pick for the role. Russell Crowe will soon step behind the camera to make his directorial debut with the Australian period drama The Water Diviner. However, it looks like he will not be staying behind the camera for long, as he reportedly wants to act in the drama as well. In other directorial news, there are rumours that Paul Feig, the director of the recent female cop comedy The Heat, is developing a female James Bond-style action comedy called Susan Cooper. Whilst no plot details have been released as yet, Feig says this project is inspired by the first Daniel Craig James Bond film, Casino Royale. The long-awaited animated series Beware the Batman will finally premiere on Cartoon Network this July. Described as a cool new take on the Dark Knight franchise, Beware the Batman combines both classic and core characters and some new villains as well. This action-packed series is being produced by Warner Bros. Animation and features cutting-edge CGI visuals. And finally, the first poster for Terry Jones' new sci-fi comedy feature, Absolutely Anything, has been released. The film will feature 4 of the surviving Monty Pythons as CGI aliens who grant a schoolteacher, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, the power to do absolutely anything and watch the trouble ensue. Also featuring the voice of Robin Williams, details on the project have been relatively quiet, but this poster shows that the film is likely to become a reality soon. And that's the news. Welcome back to Showreel. Before the break we were discussing cosplay and anime. And now that we're here, we've got Jemima, who will be discussing some more of her costumes and props. So can you give us a brief indication of how hard you worked on this and how much time it took?
Okay, well, so I've sort of brought in 2 examples from opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of constructing sort of props. Now, this is an old one. This I made 3 or 4 years ago, but it fits in the car, which my more recent ones don't. So this is from a show called Code Geass, which is a very, very popular anime 3 or 4 years ago. And it's a good example of the fact that weapons in anime don't always actually resemble real life weapons. So when you think about a sword, a sword needs to be fairly thin so that it can cut through someone. No, anime designers do not recognise this as fact. So we have this sword which is sort of about so wide and in fact resembles a stake or a tree trunk more than a sword. But that's okay. So you figure out how you're going to sort of give that a bit of an edge still, so it's sword-like. It's got wings instead of instead of having sort of a normal hilt there. It's got gems all over the blade. So this one was carved from wood pretty much entirely. The wings are plastic, which is sort of milled, but for the most part we've got glass gems wooden construction, so I carved this by hand.
wow.
Blade with power tools, rest by hand. Details are done in balsa. And then sort of paint these gems using, usually you cast gems from resin, paint them with sort of glass paint usually. To do that, string on some gems to make it shiny.
Pretty.
That's a lot of fun.
How long did that one take you to do?
Oh gosh, that one would have taken me, working on and off for a couple of weeks probably.
Oh, nice.
And then this one is
pretty.
from the end of last year, and this is from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's beautiful.
If you think of the first Lord of the Rings movie, when Arwen's sort of standing on the bridge making faces at Aragorn, she's got this going on in her hair. So this I actually did in 2 nights, but
wow.
probably 12 hours each of those nights. So you sit there with a pair of jewellery pliers and a pile of wire and sort of cause your hands to fall off. So, I've got Swarovski crystals sort of beaded onto each of those. And it's that sort of fine work is that, it's the opposite of these sort of great bludgeoning props, but can make just as much of a difference when you're at an event and people are looking up close, or when you're photographing costumes, which is something we do a lot,
Yeah. And what's the craziest costume you've ever seen at Supernova?
So probably the craziest costume I've ever seen at an event, gosh, on the weekend at Nationals we had a 24-metre long dragon plushie.
Wow.
So that with articulated fingers.
Doesn't sound easy.
Wow.
I've seen costumes that were double the height of the people wearing them, with sort of harnesses built into them to carry them.
Wow, so cool.
I've seen people with 16 legs. Zombie makeup so real you'd never know there was anything underneath. Into full sets of armour.
Yeah.
We've had costumes with what's it called? We have mechanical, like the animatronics.
Robotic.
That's the word. Animatronics and robotics built into them.
Wow.
So we get all sorts of sort of.
So people go all out.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, nice.
Nice. Would you ever want to get into working for film and TV productions and doing these sort of costumes?
Personally, I'm an academic for life, but on one of my other judges, or one of the women I was judging with on the weekend, is in her final year of costuming at NIDA, the National Institute of Dramatic Art. Yeah, so you do get some people from cosplay sort of then pursuing that passion into a career.
And is it hard judging? How do you choose a winner?
Costuming it's partly about the visual art. It's also about the performance art. There's a sort of drama and storytelling element, entertaining a crowd. So we look at their accuracy to what they're portraying, at the skills, the craftsmanship involved, and then also at how well they've entertained the audience, how well they've told their character's story.
Yeah.
And what anime would you recommend to our audiences?
Well, it depends what you're looking for. Real go-to is something like Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castle we mentioned earlier, which is sort of Oscar-winning, very general appeal. If you're looking to get into a really great classic anime series, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex is quite old now, but remains an absolute classic. Or for something more recent, we have shows like Madoka Magica that sort of Madman's just released recently, and those shows very, very popular, a lot of fun, but also some real emotion and heart to them.
Oh, wow, I have to check them out. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That was awesome.
And head to our YouTube channel to watch our episodes of Showreel and catch up on the latest Showreel news on our Twitter and Facebook accounts. You can find the trailers for all the films reviewed today on our Facebook page too.
We leave you now with more acting tips from Keanu Reeves, and we'll be back next week, the same time. See you then.
Acting is about emotion. Being able to connect and control your emotions means that you can manipulate them to create any character. Many actors go through years of training to master their own mind. The first step is to let out your bottled up feelings.
Well, I guess it all really started when I was 5. My parents started to argue more and more, and I felt like it was all my fault.
Well, I ran out of moisturizer this morning.
Next, you must learn to replicate these emotions.
And then he touched my back and said that if I didn't scream, it would all be okay.
Oh my god, are you alright?
Ha ha, gotcha, I'm such a good actor.
How could you lie to me like that? That actually happened to me.
Oh my god, I'm so
Ha
sorry.
ha, gotcha!
Lastly, use your new power over emotions to make the words on the page more than just words.
I'm not gonna let you go. Not now, not ever. Because when I said I do up at that altar, I promised to look after you in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Not half death, Not death and rebirth, but 100% dead. And until that happens, you will always be my wife. And what I do with the sexy inspector will be cheating.
When you have mastered emotion, you will be able to act in any situation, because sometimes you will have people to act off.
How dare you?
Kiss me.
But sometimes you'll be all alone.
Oblivion artist! Hey, I can see my house from here.
Hi, I'm Keanu Reeves.